This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jeopardy, jeopardy on the Mara River today here in Kenya. This is Safari Live.
Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live. You are live.
Good afternoon everybody and welcome to our sunset safari. I apologize about the gremlins that have crept into James's studio. Well, it's just the way it goes sometimes, and hopefully they'll be vanquished shortly. But you are here back with us in Djuma, all the way in South Africa. Now my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Sebastian, and it promises to be a good afternoon. It is a beautiful winter's day. We've got bright blue skies, there is not too much of a breeze, and it's quite warm, which would hopefully mean that a lot of our animals are going to be concentrating around waterholes, which is what our plan is going to be for the first part of the afternoon. We're going to go try and check around Treehouse and Twin Dams and see if we maybe can't find any signs of the big grey pachyderms, and well, there should be a couple birds around, particularly in this warmer weather. So that's the plan for this afternoon. Now remember, this is live, it is interactive, which means that you can interact with us, so you can use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter should you want to get hold of us, and we will be able to try and answer any questions or comments that you have. Right, Sebastian, did I hear something scuttling behind me here? Did you see anything?
Yeah, there was a grey duiker.
Ah, okay.
There's a woodpecker somewhere.
Yeah, I heard the woodpecker. So Sebastian was saying that we had a little duiker run away from us, which is fairly typical. I just heard some rustling in the grass, and it kind of ran away and off into the bush, which is, like I say, how it goes. And then there's a woodpecker pecking in the distance too. So we're going to head towards Treehouse Dam. We're going to try and see if there isn't anything in that area. And while we do that, let's go across to Taylor McCurdy so she can say good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon to all of you. Tristan said I must say that. It is a beautiful day as it has been described. A bit of wind, but only a couple of clouds in the sky. Welcome again everybody. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me today is Craig, and we are bringing you a live and interactive safari. Now, hopefully we're not going to have too many gremlins. Look, a butterfly. Look at that. That was typical butterfly syndrome. It's a monarch. Let's see if we can get a view of it. Doesn't seem to be flying too fast. It just seems to be fluttering around. I think it's wanting to land on a piece of grass. It's actually landed on the grass. If you go straight in there we go. Nice one, Craig. There's two African monarchs, and they're quite nice. We haven't seen butterflies for a long time. When we were seeing butterflies, they were against the beautiful green of the grass. Now we're changing it up, of course, and we've got them against the lovely yellow golden grass. Now, it must be tough for them at the moment. Obviously, the adult butterflies don't necessarily feed like the larvae do. They're looking for sugars and nectar for energy. So there isn't many flowers out at the moment. Just a couple, obviously knobthorn flowers. Some of the jasmines are also flowering. The num-nums should get flowers too. But other than that, it must be quite difficult for them to find things. You might find that they end up doing quite a bit of mud puddling. So sort of going to the dams, or even just sitting on fresh animal dung. They can absorb nutrients from the moisture that they get off of that. But aren't they so beautiful? Now again, you don't want to eat these ones because they're toxic. They're not particularly tasty. So you don't normally see too many birds and things feeding upon them. What a great way to start. Maybe our luck is going to change. What would be really splendid, of course, is if the wild dogs come back. Wouldn't that be nice? But maybe they'll come out for Tristan, because Tristan also loves wild dogs and he's been practicing his wild dog call, which we must ask him to do again this afternoon. Anyways, we'll keep going around. We'll start checking some of the dams. I'm going to send you back across to Kenya, to James and Steph, who are in the studio.
Right, well, we're here in the studio again. I'm sorry about that lack of picture. What happened to me was that I was attacked by a bungee cord this morning. The details of this incident are not important. Most importantly is that this patch is off my eye, and in fact, although I was hit in the eye, I can see with both eyes, which is good. Severe injury to the forehead. I think it may have damaged my brain, but that's okay. There wasn't much there to damage in the first place. Now, we've had quite an action-packed day. Let us go across to Main South Crossing, if possible. There we are. Now, we've seen 3 or 4 crossings today, in fact 5 or 6 crossings of zebra and topi, and we've just watched, as you came across here, we watched a few zebra try and make their way across here. 2 of them made it, and then the others got a fright, turned around and came back this way. So we're hoping for a few more crossings during the course of the afternoon. Remember, you can talk to us entirely at will, #SafariLive. You can send us your questions or your comments. We'll do our very best to get to all of those during the course of the afternoon. What we'll do now is quickly take you across to a few of the other I use the term waterhole, a few of the other river crossings. Can we possibly go, Louise, to Main North? It is a little bit difficult to do this on the fly, but there you will see Main North, where we have one of the watched zebras coming across the river. They got in amongst them. Seemed also not to know what to do. They stopped halfway across, had a bit of a drink. Some of them turned round. One of them was killed, and the rest made it across the other way. So it's very difficult to work out the psyche of the animals that are involved in crossing, and then, of course, in intercepting the crossings, one of which you can see over. Now, I believe there are a few gremlins going on here, so let's head across back to Tristan and find out how the water is at Djuma.
Haven't quite gotten there, James. I've got a bit distracted with one of our smaller creatures and a highly mobile squirrel. It's now just stopped for a second. And what have you got there? Looks like it's got a little nut that it's now feeding off. So it's amazing to watch these guys feed off these small nuts. You'll find they'll put them in those large incisors that is common in the rodents. We'll be able to then crack that all open and get into the seed that's inside there. That will be the nutritious part of what they're trying to get. So watch how quickly it makes work and light of a little nut. We know as people how difficult it can be, but this little squirrel gets through it very quickly. There we go. Isn't that cool? He was moving quite quickly, or she, I can't tell just yet, and was jumping around all over the place on this fallen over tree, and obviously found something on the ground and then ran up into the tree to devour it. The reason why they often do this and sort of walk up onto the top of a tree like this when they feed is from there they're going to be able to see any predators that likely are around. Remember, when they're feeding, they're making noise, and they also are a little bit distracted, so they can't see or hear as well as they normally would. And so if they fed on the ground, they would have a threat of snakes, leopards, all kinds of other mammal predators, as well as predators from the air. Now on the tree, it can see what's going on, and the only thing that would really try to get to it up there could potentially be a bird of prey. But a bird of prey would have to be very careful, because to dive bomb from a height to catch the squirrel unaware and actually hit it in a tree without damaging wings is very difficult. So it makes sense for the squirrel to get there. Now, it's been quite clever as it found itself a little bit of shade. Are you going to come down now and look for more food? Yep, here we go. Down the tree it goes, and it will just disappear into the grass once it comes down. So, Rachel, you say you love the little critters as much as you like the big ones. And that is so true, Rachel. The little ones are just as fascinating and just as entertaining as the big guys. And without the little ones, we wouldn't have any of the big guys either. They're all part of a system that fits together and works together very well. And without one, you can find that another one might collapse, and you'll then have a knock-on effect. So we have to appreciate that all the little ones are integrate part of this whole bushveld complex that we have both here in the here in Djuma and up in the Mara as well. Now, earlier we heard a little tapping and drumming on a tree in the distance, and it sounds like Taylor has managed to find what's causing it, so let's quickly go across to her.
We have indeed, but before I say anything more, I want you all to listen, so turn up your volume. I cannot believe it. That is probably the rudest thing that an animal has ever done to me in my entire life. The entire time. That was a bearded woodpecker, by the way. I can't, but that was ridiculous. Even Craig's got the giggles now. We sat here and we could hear it. We drove just a little bit off road so we can try and find this bird. And what it was doing a territorial call. So not just the normal pecking at a tree that a woodpecker would do when it's trying to find food, but it creates the most amazing drumming sound that can be heard from the far corners of the Sabi sands. You can hear it most days too, but that was so nice because it was so close and it didn't want to fly away. But typical Murphy's Law, put a camera on it, it doesn't do it anymore and it flies off. I was just saying to Craig, this is probably going to be the best sighting I've had of a bearded woodpecker doing it. Perhaps I jinxed us. I think that's exactly what's happened. No, you just need to, I'm just going to go this way around. Over here. Ah, that would have been so great. Next time we'll just have to try and find another one. Now I'm not sure what else is around here. The birds also, again, they're so quiet. I don't know why they're being so quiet. It was sort of the first bird other than a couple of buffalo weavers that we've seen so far. I think we'll start making our way down towards Treehouse Dam. We'll see how our two little blacksmith lapwing chicks are doing. Maybe they'll be closer to the water's edge and closer around towards us so we can get a seriously good look at them. But I think we might do a bit of birding today. I feel like it. Maybe some more oxpeckers. Hopefully they'll be on a herd of some sort of animal that we can watch too. But we'll keep searching. We'll go down towards Treehouse Dam and see what's happening on that end of the world. Tristan, however, has found something slightly larger than the squirrel he had earlier.
We have indeed, but all the same, very interesting. I like these zebras. It's a nice herd that we've got that hangs around this area. It hangs around the big brown ivory close to Zoe's Road, and we see them fairly regularly here. I think it's the same herd that unfortunately the Nkumas and the Birmingham boy grabbed one from a few weeks ago, or over a month ago now, and they do spend a lot of time in this area. They kind of go onto the firebreak and then cross into Hoffman's, and just south of us inside Hoffman's here is a big open clearing that the zebras often used to hang around. So I think they go from there up to this area and then back again, and that's their kind of general movement that they take. But they are beautiful and a very relaxed herd as well, and that's why I like them, because we end up being able to get quite close to them and spend nice quality time in amongst these ever so pretty animals. It seems as though everyone's still on a sort of go slow at the moment because, well, it's a little bit warm out here and they're finding shade in places, and you'll find some of them are tucked in the shade and they're slowly but surely heading in a northerly direction. I would imagine the reason why they've moved a little bit is because it's right up against a main road and there's quite a few vehicles that go up and down, and so I think that's pushed them a little bit off the firebreak area into this little section, and now they're just trying to find themselves some shade to just stay out of the sun for a little bit until the sun cools down, and then you'll find they'll come out and really start to graze and feed quite heavily. They're one of those animals, much like buffalo, that like to feed early in the morning and late in the afternoon. They're ones that take advantage of those cooler times and spend a lot of time feeding in those sort of situations. During the middle of the day, you'll often find them sitting exactly like this, head to tail, and just resting and taking it a little bit easy and waiting for it to cool down before being too active. But they are such beautiful animals. Those manes are my favorite part of a zebra. The fact that their stripes go off their neck into the hair above, and that the manes stand up so straight, almost as if they have a mohawk, is one of my favorite things in the world about them. I think they really look quite good. I'm sure there's lots of horses and donkeys out there that are pretty jealous of the zebra's beautiful coat. Marigo, you asking, are the zebras here in Djuma the same as the zebras in the Masai Mara? Well, essentially yes, they are both considered to be plain zebra or Burchell zebra, but there is a school of thought that the zebras that you're seeing up in the Masai Mara are a subspecies called the Grant zebra. Now, I actually didn't know this until James started discussing it the other day, and I was reading a few articles that some of you posted on Twitter about it, and so it seems that they've been named a subspecies called the Grant zebra, and these down here the Burchell zebra, but essentially they are both plain zebras, and there's no massive distinction in terms of who they are and what they are. If you had to look in some books, you'll find that there'll be plain zebra in both books, but a subspecies as called Grant zebra is what they're now referring to them as. So I still want to do a bit more research about it and just kind of read up exactly what differentiates the two and why they have divided it into a subspecies. Maybe it's to do with the fact that our zebras down here don't congregate nearly in as bigger numbers as what you see up there. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure some of you might know the answer, or maybe even James himself. So we'll have to ask James when we go back to the studio, and I'm sure he'll be able to explain a little bit better as to why the zebra up there is called the Grant's zebra and why it is a subspecies from these guys. So you can see they make short work of grass. They kind of put it in and they chew it quite quickly, and the reason why they chew very fast is because they've got quite a bad digestive system. So unlike the ruminating animals that will regurgitate and re-chew, and they chop up every little bit of what they take in as fine as possible so as to maximize their absorption of nutrients from the food, zebras don't quite have that system. They just eat more than they would have normally eaten, and so they can afford to kind of take big stems, chomp it down roughly, and then put it into that gut where there'll be a bacteria that will aid in digestion, and they'll then just pass it through. So it's almost like a big vat that they have, and that's why they have that very round appearance that you're seeing there. It's because one, they've got a place to store massive amounts of food, but two, there's the bacteria that just helps to break things down and just helps them to digest, and the byproduct of that is the gas, and that causes a bit of bloating that you see there. Isn't that beautiful? You can see the little sparkle on the coat. Now, I believe James Henry is all the way in the Mara, and he's got something with lots of teeth that, well, they sparkle when they're young, but the size of the crocodiles in the Masai Mara, I doubt many of those teeth are sparkling.
They are certainly not sparkling now. Look at these things. This villain of the deep has been eating topi or zebra all day long, and look, he's got remnants on his sharp teeth. He's just opened his mouth now. That's his gular flap there. And what is very interesting, of course, is that that flap closes over the throat when the crocodile bites something underwater so that it doesn't drown, which I think is rather clever. Isn't that astonishing? Let's see if we can't go to his eye. He's only just opened his mouth. Let's try and go to his eyeball there. There you go. Membrane moving there. Well, this chap's now fallen asleep. I don't blame him. He's full of food. You can see the remnants of topi and zebra on his top palate, but let's just wait for him to open his eye because it really is quite cool. I'd love to sort of clap and make a noise to make him open his eye, but that's obviously not possible from where we are. There's the membrane. You see that nictitating membrane? Now, interestingly, it was pointed out to me almost certainly by Judy H. that elephants have a similar kind of a membrane that you can watch going across their eyes, just wiping the lens. I wish I'd had one of those today. I was attacked by the bungee cord. Anyway, there are the eyes, and let's go along the teeth. Look at that. Rachel, you say they are truly frightening. I cannot agree with you more. Now, yesterday I got a comment on Twitter which was very valid, especially if I wasn't clear enough. I've been referring to these chaps as the villains of the bush, and that, you know, nobody roots for them because they're so villainous looking. I must just reiterate, as I did say to the villains and say that nobody really likes them, all I mean, of course, is that in a story or tongue-in-cheek way, they are the villains. Look at his wonderful skin. Isn't that amazing? The tail folded. Being attacked by a fly. You might hear some frantic clapping noises shortly. That is just amazing. We'll go back up his back now, I think, because it's just too special to do it like this. Bobby, you say the notch that would close. Let me just have a look. You're talking about a notch in the upper jaw. Let's go again there. Go again with that, Louise. You mean that thing there where he's losing a tooth? Right. Yes, now he's lost a tooth there, and you can see a new one coming through. And if you're a crocodile, in fact, he's lost 3 teeth, I think. If you're a crocodile, if you lose a tooth, it is replaced immediately by another one. And I think you're also wanting to know, does that sort of notch above the lost tooth have a sort of slot? Yes, it does. Or does that tooth underneath it slot into it? And I think you're absolutely right. I wish I could point. I wish I had some kind of method of pointing, but I can't. The biggest tooth there, or the highest pointing tooth there on the bottom jaw, I think does slot into that notch there, Bobby. I think you're absolutely right. And the one next to it slots into the notch above. That's very well observed. I didn't see that. And then, as Louise is pointing out to me now, there are notches clearly visible on the bottom jaw where the top teeth obviously slot in. Let me get down a bit there. There, you can see them. Bottom right-hand side of your screen. Isn't that cool? There's a bit of a topy or wildebeest plasma, or what's the word I always forget to use? Viscera. Viscera. Anyway, this is one of pretty big crocodile. He's not the biggest I've seen. I'd say he's probably in the region of, I don't know, 800 kilograms maybe. He's pretty big. I'll show you where he's sitting, where the water is. And I wonder if we won't see perhaps something else thinking about crossing. Now, the fact that those vehicles are there is interesting. Vehicles, a little bit like animals here in the Masai Mara mass, when they think there's going to be action. On some gathering animals. No, don't seem to be any there. Now, Clara, you're just 10 years old, and you say, are there any birds that will teeth? There are birds around the place. I've heard of doing it. I thought cattle egrets did it, but I'm not so sure that they do actually anymore. I've not actually seen it as far as I'm aware, and Brent made mention of a species of bird which I've forgotten now, that he said was a major cleaner of crocodile teeth. But yes, they do occur, Clara, but I haven't seen any in this area. Lou, can we go to Main Crossing South, please? That's the camera just down the way. And we'll be able to see a little bit more. So this is just down the river from where we've been, and that's a main crossing point there. That you can see where the crocodiles are lurking. That's where we had the big zebra crossings today, and you can see the massing vehicles there or the 2 vehicles. That's 2 of them that we saw earlier. They're the same ones, just from a different angle. All right, well, we're going to wait and see what happens at these crossings. While we do that, I believe Tristan is still desperately searching to quench his thirst.
I am indeed, James. I'm slowly but surely making my way there, and, well, hopefully I will get there at some stage, but I bumped into the ever-giggling Taylor Jane McCurdy on her way. She went to Treehouse Dam, but unfortunately Rusty had a gremlin problem at Treehouse Dam, so now I'm going instead. But before I get there, because Taylor said she'll do some birding, and there's probably one of the most beautiful birds just up there, Seb, on the top of that tree. There it is. So a little bee eater is what it's called, and for this time of the year a lot of our colourful birds unfortunately have migrated out of this area, and so these guys bring a splash of colour and vibrance to the bush like not many others do. I suppose the lilac-breasted roller is one that does as well, but you'll find them often on trees like this where there's a little bare branch that they can sit on, and then from there they'll just swoop down right down to the sort of grass level and grab insects as they go and then back up to the tree. Now they'll hunt many different types of insects and beetles and varying other types of food items, but you'll find that they do go after bees as well, which is obviously where their name has come from, bee eater. And when they do go after bees, they are very clever about the way they do things. They'll fly down and they'll grab that bee, and then they'll go back up onto the tree, and generally they'll try and find a tree with very abrasive bark. So something like just to our right here, Seb, that we've got, which is this tree here. You can see, look at how abrasive that bark is. They'll then land on something like that, and with their beak they'll wipe the bee on that bark, and what happens is eventually the sting gets caught on that bark and will pull off, and all those sort of internal organs come out with the sting, and they can swallow it without having to worry about being stung in the throat or in the stomach or anything like that, which to me is insanely clever. Now unfortunately it has flown away, which is pretty typical of the little bee eaters. They are birds that don't sit still for long. They're a bit like our squirrel friend in that they move all the time, so you kind of have a small window to put them onto the screen, and then off they go again. But they are very pretty, and those sort of olive back and then that light coloured chest. I see they've landed up front here with a fork-tailed drongo. So I wonder if they'll let us get a little closer this time, Seb. Maybe not. I think here's probably about as far as we're going to be able to get. So you can see most of the time they're on a bare branch. There's the fork-tailed drongo on the right, much bigger and larger, had that deep V in it, and there's our two little bee eaters. They see the little yellow throat and that bright electric blue turquoisey colour above the eye. Beautiful birds. And it's amazing how we sort of don't notice them as much in the summer months, because we've got the white-fronted bee eaters around quite heavily. We've got carmine bee eaters that come in, the European bee eaters, and almost as though they take over from these guys. But in the winter, these become our bread and butter when it comes to bee eaters, because these are the ones we see a lot. Unfortunately, here where we are, the white-fronted bee eaters are not as common. White-fronted like to be closer towards sort of river areas and where there's a constant source of water that is flowing, and so that's why we don't see nearly as many up in this section as you do down on the Sabi River or the Sand River. But it's also a very pretty bird, and you do see them in the winter months here too. Nice. Well, we'll still try and get towards Treehouse Dam. We're trying to get there. It's taking a bit of time, but we are trying to get there slowly but surely. I wonder if there'll be any surprises for us at the dam. What do you think, Seb? Maybe a buffalo. Where, oh where are the buffalo? I have no idea. So when I flew in today, I flew in, and the route that it comes from Johannesburg is that you fly in and you come over the Blyde River Canyon, and then you fly basically past Hoedspruit and around, and so you go into Beluli and those areas, and then you turn back towards sort of Hoedspruit side, and that takes you over quite a big section of natural bush area, and you fly very low and you can spot all kinds of animals from up there. It's very cool to watch. But I did not see one buffalo in that whole little loop round. I saw elephants, we saw a few other things that are large, but not any buffalo, which was very surprising. I was trying to check all around. The thing is about a buffalo is the time that I flew in was around lunchtime, so it would probably in all likelihood mean that they're under some sort of shade, and that's why I didn't see anything. But it was a little bit surprising. Not even any herds of them or anything like that. Now I see some ripples in Treehouse Dam, which must indicate that there is a hippo somewhere here. Now Micah, you're asking, are there any wildebeest in this area? Well Micah, yes there are. So we do get wildebeest, nothing on the scale like James is being witnessing in the Masai Mara over the last few months, but we do get some. We get smaller groupings. In fact, we had a nice group of them on quarantine at the start of the week. Now quarantine is an open area close to our camp, and there must have been about 20 odd of them up that way. So there are some around. We just don't see nearly as many as what you see in the Masai Mara. Here the vegetation is not quite right for them. It's a little bit too dense and thick, and it makes life a bit tough for them because predators really have a field day by being able to stalk them and get to them, and so the numbers here are a little bit less than what you would see in Kenya. Now Seb is showing you a beautiful terrapin, if you can call a terrapin beautiful, who looks as though he's just floating along and using the sort of surface tension of the water to keep his head up. But in real actual fact, I think, is that the one that was floating on top of the hippo's head just now? No, I'm not sure if it is. But there was one when we just were coming down to Treehouse Dam. Out the corner of my eye, I saw a hippo going under with a terrapin on its head. So I'm hoping that one of these will see them just being elevated out of the water, because terrapins often do like to sit on top of a hippo, whether it be their back or their heads, and they'll use that as an island of refuge where they can kind of sit and sun themselves and get that body temperature up. The other thing is that the hippos are quite happy to have terrapins around, because terrapins are vitally important for keeping the hippo nice and clean of parasites. So not only do the oxpeckers help the hippo when they're on land, but when they're in water, these guys play a vital role in keeping that hippo clean. And what they do is they'll basically go up to where the hippo is, and where there's ticks and parasites that are on the skin, you'll find these guys will actually go and bite them all and feed off them and get rid of them and keep that hippo clean. The problem with them is, unlike the oxpeckers that are almost surgical in the way that they remove parasites, these guys have quite a nasty bite, and they've got a hard beak-like structure, very similar to most turtles and tortoises. And so when they bite down on a soft area of a hippo or a buffalo, generally it's met with a massive flick and a big sort of grunt within that animal, and off goes the terrapin flying in a bow wave as that animal moves away. So it's always quite fun to watch. And there's our hippo just coming up now. He's just poking his head out. Hopefully he's not going to be too shy. Hello. Look at it breathing. Isn't that cool? See how the water's being blown out? So you'll find when they go under, they seal those nostrils. Now he's getting big deep breath of air in, and then the nostril will seal. There we go. And then you'll go under, and you'll just watch us slowly. And when he comes back up, he'll breathe out heavily just to get rid of any water that's collected on top of that nostril. That's very cool. It's not every day that we get to be so close to a hippo and at eye level to one. It's a very cool thing to be able to see all the details in their face. Now, they're not deemed to be the most prettiest of animals, but I quite like hippos. I like their way that they look. I like the small little stubby ears and those big large eyes and big nostrils. There comes the terrapin. Look, here comes his friend. Are you going to climb on? Yes? It almost looks as though the hippo is giving him a little helping hand, twisting his head slightly. So the terrapin is busy climbing onto the actual tusk of the hippo that's protruding underneath the lip. There we go. Dropped your head down. You're a very cooperative hippo. That was very nice of you. Now let's see if our terrapin goes all the way to the top. Isn't this cool? Hold on, terrapin, because there we go. And you can see the hippo is not perturbed. It definitely knows that there's a terrapin on its head. But isn't that the coolest thing? That is awesome. It's not every day that you're going to see a terrapin climbing between the eyes of a hippo. And that hippo seems as though honestly to have ducked its head down to allow that terrapin to climb up, and has almost pushed it up and said, come on, get on top. I know you were on there and I went under and I disturbed you, so I'm sorry. Get back up there. There we go. Isn't this amazing? Not every day you're going to see that, that's for sure. Now for the terrapin, that must be the singular best place to be in the whole world, because you know very few things are going to go after you on top of a hippo's head. There's going to be no fish that are going to try to get you, no storks, no leopards are going to jump on a hippo's head to try and grab you. So that is the single best place to go and sun yourself. It's almost like having your own private security guard. So Karen, you say, oh nice, he let him up. I know, it was amazing to watch. I've actually never seen a hippo do that. Often hippos are a little bit funny about these kind of things, particularly anything around their eyes and their nostrils. You'll find oxpeckers do go land there and then the hippo goes under. It doesn't like all that sort of commotion around its eye, but it definitely sort of twisted its head slightly and went under a little bit and pulled that terrapin up. So that was very cool to witness. And you can see now the terrapin's got a perfect place to warm up its body. You're a very nice hippo. That's cool. So, Bunny, you're asking what is the difference between a terrapin, a turtle, and a tortoise. Well, here in South Africa, the turtles that we get are all sea-going creatures, so they swim around in the ocean, not in the freshwater areas. Our freshwaters are dominated by terrapins, so they have a no tolerance to the salt, like the turtles do. So are you going to let another one up onto your head? No. You're getting out now. Oh, hold on, Terrapin. It's going to be a bit of a rough ride for a few seconds. So, terrapins are all freshwater. They have no tolerance of the salt whatsoever, so that's one difference with them. Then the tortoises are all land-based, so they don't spend any time in water like the terrapins and the turtles do. So that's the separation between them and... Oh no, whoopsie, that didn't go well. There goes our terrapin, look, floating away at the back there. Sorry, buddy. You'll have to swim back towards your hippo friend and have to tell him off for dumping you. I don't think that went quite according to plan for that terrapin. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Often they get dumped in a big bow wave, and it must feel as though they're in an ocean that's 10 foot high, and they're kind of being smashed around and rolled around. It's almost like when we go into big seas and you try and go surfing and you get thrown off. It must be the same kind of feeling. Right, well, we're going to see how our terrapin and hippo friendship goes and whether or not our terrapin tells our hippo off. And while we do that, let's go across to James, who I believe has got something happening down at the river cam.
Hello everybody again. We are still looking at the river cams. We're looking currently at Main... no, we're not at Dust... What are we looking at there? That's Main North, with a crocodile and a car driving towards where it just looks like there could be some action about to occur somewhere around here fairly soon. So let's just go down this way and see what these chaps are following up on. Not a great deal at this stage. Okay, well that's all right. Can we go to Dusty crossing now, please, Louise? Dusty. Dust. Non-fattening. Dust. There we are. We are now zooming across. And the reason I wanted to come here was because of those hippopotami and that single silhouetted topi. Now, I believe this to be an element of their lecking behavior. Oh, there's a Thomson's gazelle there as well. Now, should that Thomson's gazelle decide to cross the river, well, it's going to have a very bad afternoon indeed. They're not very good at swimming because they're very little. Now, lecking in the topi, of course, is their method of displaying. That is how they display to each other, and then the ladies come and decide which one stands best on the termite mound. I'm not sure what the criteria they use are, but there you have it. Now let us just watch these Thomson's gazelles and see if they don't decide to come down to the river. Eee, there are quite a few of them there, you know. We might be up for our first Tommy. Whoops, daisy, sorry about that. We might be, that's not my fault everybody, we might be in for our first Tommy crossing of the year, which would be, well, I must confess that if it does happen everybody, I suggest you all close your eyes, because it's a bit harrowing to watch crocodiles swallow these things in one gulp. You really then do get an appreciation for the size of the crocodiles and their speed. Okay, now they are probably resident fellows. I don't think they've come with the migrating herds. So if you weren't watching any of the Facebook Live broadcast today, I just wanted to tell you that we did see one wildebeest crossing. Yes, a single wildebeest crossed the river today with a whole lot of zebra, seemed to survive. The other thing is that we talk about how these crocodiles have not eaten for 9 months and they've never, they have to wait for the migration. It would seem that the topi do cross from time to time during the what we might term off-season. So I don't think the crocs have quite as lean a time of it as they'd like us to believe. I think they have a better time than that. Anyway, There's also an impala there, a big Mara impala, and you can see the light slowly starting to soften now as we head towards 20 to 5. Now there are still vehicles gathering at Main North Crossing. Let's head across there. Let's see if we can't find what they're looking at. Here we go. Let's have a look-see. Yeah, I think that there's something going on the other side. Let's put our eyes there. There could also, of course, as Louise has just pointed out to me rather obviously, be some lions, which I didn't think of. If we go to Main South, we can see where those vehicles are looking as well. And I know these are not particularly imaginative names, but they are the names that have been chosen by the authorities in this area, and so we're going to stick with them. Well, we might like to call this a zebra crossing, or crocodile devouring crossing, or silky river fish crossing, something like that. We're not going to. No, I can't see any animals in imminent danger of getting their tootsies wet. Right, not much going on there then. We'll keep an eye on these things, and while we do that, Tristan apparently has found finally some water with something in it.
Well, we have, James, and it seems our Terrapin has forgiven his hippo friend for throwing him off, or maybe it just enjoys the ride of going under and up and over and all being sort of tumbled around in the water, because you can see right back into the same place again and looking very proud of itself to be sitting on top of the hippo's head. Now, our hippo had a little sort of show of teeth just now for 2 seconds and then went back to being quite placid, and it seems as though our Terrapin has sent the word out because more of its friends are arriving ever so slowly. There's 1 or 2 arriving towards the front of the face. There we go. You pushing... Oh, there goes a Terrapin. Careful, you don't want to get too close to that mouth when it decides to yawn. There we go, it's popped out the other side now, so that's okay. There we go. See the friends all coming to the party. It should be quite entertaining to see how many get up. Oopsie. I wonder if it just doesn't like more than one, so it's... No, there goes another one. This is so cool. There we go. Well done. You're on now as well. There's not much space up there for the third one, I don't think. There was a third one drifting around somewhere. I don't know where that one has gone. I don't know if there's any more space for them. But this has got to be one of the coolest hippo sightings I've had in a long time. So, aka, you say it's a Terrapin water park. It looks like it, doesn't it? It's almost like a slide. You have to kind of get up onto the slide and then you get thrown off, and it obviously is quite fun because otherwise lots of them wouldn't be coming. Of course, we know it's not quite that, and that it's all to do with just safety and a good point to go and spend time out of the water. The rain. You're talking about getting onto the hippo while it's only $5. Well, yes, it seems that way. There was a whole bunch coming, and then the hippo turned a little bit and the rest have sort of disappeared now and are going the other way. But at one point it looked like there were 4 or 5 Terrapins on their way to our hippo's head. Oh, are you guys getting shaken off? It's almost like it's a start, you know, when the rides build up at a water park. You have a little shake to start and then under we go. There we go. That's how you rid yourself of Terrapins, apparently, is that you just go underneath and there they go floating off. I wonder if they will come back. Let's see. There's definitely one in the background is keen to come back. There it comes. Are you going to climb on? You're going to have to be stealthy because I don't... Oh, and maybe we get a big yawn. So Monique, all the way from London. Hello Monique, and I hope that you are enjoying your summer in London. Oh, and now we've got an oxpecker that's joined. Oh, now it gets interesting, because not only do we have the terrapins, but we have the oxpeckers vying for competition on the hippo's head. But Monique, you were asking whether or not the terrapins will feed off any of the ticks that a hippo possesses, and that does happen. Look at this. This is so cool. We have 3 species all in one. This hippo is is now being used. Oh, and there comes another terrapin. That sent the oxpecker scuttling along. Now the oxpecker also uses the hippo for a different reason. They will often land on the hippo to be able to use it to drink from there. So they land on and they can drink, and they know that a crocodile or a bird of prey is not going to grab them while they are exposed and drinking, and it allows them to then sit and drink nicely, and if there is a parasite in the form of a tick, the oxpecker can feed off it. But you'll find that the terrapins mostly feed off the ticks that are below the water surface. What they're doing now is actually not looking for food, but rather to get into a place where they can sun themselves and get that body temperature up and get that blood moving so as to be more active and to at least sustain them through the night. Because remember, this small piece of water is going to be very influenced by temperature, and so as the temperature drops through the night, it's going to get very cold, and cold-blooded animals like these guys are going to battle a little bit, so they need to sun themselves. Now earlier I was talking about terrapins, turtles and tortoises, and I didn't quite finish what I was saying, so let me carry on with that and just make sure that we're all on the same page. But basically, a turtle is saltwater for the most part here in South Africa. In other parts of the world you will find turtles in water. The thing about turtles is that they spend all their time in water. They do not come out onto land other than to lay eggs, but the rest of their life is spent in water itself and constantly moving within water. Tortoises spend most of their time on land, or in fact 99% of their time on land. They will go to water just to be able to drink, but they actually don't swim around in water. Now a terrapin is the divide between the two. So a terrapin is a semi-aquatic animal, which means that it spends most of its life in water, but will come onto land either to move to change water sources or to be able to... Oh, there goes our terrapins for sure. They must have slid off. Did they hold on? It looks like they held on. That's where little claws come into power. Now it's almost, that's part of the game, is to see if you can hold on when yawning. You don't want to be thrown off, so it's almost like mechanical bull riding on an extreme version. So for those of you that don't know what mechanical bull riding is, there's these fake bulls that they set up and people have to try and hold on. Well, I think this is the extreme natural version when it comes to our terrapins holding on to the hippo's head. And so I was saying that the terrapins will be on water mostly, and then they do come onto land to sun themselves and to then cross into other areas. So that's the actual differences between all 3 of them, just so that we're all on the same page. Are you going to yawn again? Looks like it. Yep, there we go. Look at the teeth. Isn't that cool? Oh, no, they went to terrapin. One lost the game. Oh, they both out, I'm afraid. This has got to be one of the best hippo sightings I've ever had. You've been quite comical this afternoon, gentlemen. I always laugh when he goes under, because the terrapins kind of float around by his head with the head sticking out of the water, looking very bewildered as to what's just happened and why have we been evicted off of your head. And you see now the hippo is almost moving away from the area, and I wonder if it's going to try and find a different spot where there are fewer terrapins. Are you grunting at us now? But we're not doing anything. So, Bavokila, you're wondering if hippos live alone or if they live in big groups. Now, what you'll find is that hippos mostly will live in rafts, which is big groupings of hippos together, and that will consist of females and young and big adult male that is dominant over that raft of hippos. So he'll have a group of females that he'll protect from other males. In a situation like this here in Djuma, is that it's now in our winter, so we're having areas drying up. So it's places like Treehouse Dam are getting smaller, which means younger males that were on the periphery of these herds that are now starting to pose a threat to the older males are being pushed out, and they're then having to go into areas like this where they can spend some time. And is he going to yawn again? It looks like he will. Yes, there we go. Little one maybe. Oh, look at those teeth. And so they then come out and they end up being alone like this, and they will spend time in these places until they get bigger and stronger and bulkier, that they're able to then start challenging for those females again. Places like the Mara are a little bit different because the Mara River is a densely populated hippo area. Here in Djuma we don't have a river system, which means that our dams have to house a few hippos, and as it dries out, so our hippos will move and go to other areas. But in the Mara, the river runs pretty much most of the time, and you'll get big groupings of hippos within the river, and then the young males will be shifted on their own off to the side, and then the big males with the females. But look at those teeth. Now what he's doing now, he's not yawning because he's tired or that he's wanting to get out of the water. He's yawning as a display to us. Right, we're a big object. We're sitting on the edge of the water source at the moment, and he's showing us, this is my water hole. These are my teeth. These are my weapons. Don't come any closer. Don't come into the water, because otherwise I'm going to chase you away. So what he's doing is just showing a display like he would to any other hippo that would arrive here. And you'll find that hippos even do this to elephants, to buffalo, and sometimes even to rhinos. When they come down to drink, they'll display and show everybody, this is my water hole, stay away, stay clear. So that's what he's doing now. It's not because he's tired in any way, and there's a little bit of huffing and puffing just to make sure that we understand that we are in his area and that this is his water source that we are focusing on. Now the reason why he hasn't been aggressive and come out of the water is because he knows that he's safer in water than he is on land, and so as long as he can keep us at bay and not go into the water itself, then he'll be happy with that, and he'll make sure that we just stay here and he stays there, and everything will be okay. It's quite fun to watch them and elephants go at each other though. Regal, you're asking, why are hippos not part of the Big Five? Well, the Big Five is not the 5 biggest animals out here in Africa. It's a bit of a misconception. It was the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt in the age of the great white hunters, and they kind of came up with the term because these 5 animals were really difficult and very dangerous to hunt. The thing is with hippos at that stage is that even though they were hunted, most of the time they were hunted from the shore, and they didn't pose the same threat as something like a lion or a leopard or an elephant or a buffalo did. So you had a situation where that's why they became the Big Five, and from there, as tourism and photographic tourism is taken over from hunting tourism, that was translated into an area that where you find the Big Five is generally the wilder, bigger, freer roaming areas, because of how big most of those animals are and that they require large space, that those are true wilderness areas. And so that's why hippo, giraffe are not part of those big animals. Theoretically, a hippo and a giraffe is much bigger than a lion or a leopard, but they weren't as aggressive towards people on land as what these cats were. So that's kind of how it's worked, and that's why they're not part of it anymore. Well, they're not part of it at all, should I say, not anymore. But he looks as though he's almost starting to get a bit sleepy now from all this displaying, and eyes are closing every now and then. It's probably to do with a bit of the glare as well. I'm sitting here and I'm facing the same way he is, and it is very bright. The sun is reflecting off the water, and I'm having to squint my eyes a little bit as well. Oh, we've got an oxpecker back again. Now this is an adult oxpecker. Just now we had a young oxpecker, the one that lacked that bright red beak. You can see this one has now got a very red beak, and that is of the adults. The juveniles get grey beaks, and you'll find that they're probably all sitting close by, and as soon as they see a gap when the hippo just stables out and gets a little bit calmer, then they can fly down and be able to drink water. And you saw how it sort of sat on the edge and then just drinks little sips of water and then flies off again. Very clever, those birds. But isn't it amazing how this hippo, its senses are so perfectly designed for it to be able to see what's going on above the water surface without having to expose its body. So the eyes, the nostrils and the ears are all pretty much in the same line when he flattens his head out. So look, there we go, and it means that just the top of that head is exposed. So in hot African summer days when the temperatures are over 120 degrees and it's very, very, very hot, it means that they can keep their body submerged and they won't dehydrate or get burnt by the sun, and they can still then watch what's going on around them. Because remember, with a hippo, most of its sort of threats and predators are actually coming from land. Down in the water, they're not too fussed about crocodiles, particularly a big hippo like this. It would be a very silly crocodile to take on a hippo this size, and so they don't have to stress too much about what's going on under the water, but they do have to worry about things like lions that may come around, and so that's why their senses are all on top. So So, Daniel, in Scotland, you want to know if hippos can see under the water. Now, this is a question that I ask myself regularly, because when you see them going underwater, you'll find that they close their eyes. But I have seen photos of hippos underwater, and their eyes are open, and they seem to have, much like a crocodile, they have a nictitating membrane, by the looks of it, that goes over the eye. And now, I've tried to read up about whether they actually do, and I haven't gotten too far with it just yet, but it seems as though they have limited vision underwater, much like us as people. So when we open our eyes, we can see a little bit, but not too far. And they will rely more on their kind of stumbling around in their big body shape that will just bump into things than actually seeing what's going on. But their eyes definitely are open underwater. I've seen underwater photographs of hippos with their eyes open. And so, like I said, must be very similar to us. If there's no membrane that's coming over, then it must be that they just kind of look the same way we do in water and see what's going on. The thing that worries me about that, and why they must have something that keeps their eyes clean, is that water that they lie in is not like your swimming pool that's been cleaned and filtered and looked after. There's lots of debris and all kinds of things in water that's going to cause a lot of problems. So if that gets into the eye, you're going to get infections and all kinds of other things. So it would be interesting. Now, talking about hippos and rivers and all things aquatic, I believe James Henry is still watching the river, and maybe he can help us as to whether hippos see underwater.
We are on the banks of the river, everybody, as we have been all afternoon, and with the Tommies here, have not come down too much closer to the river. I don't think they're going to cross. They may be silly enough. There are some taupi and, of course, some impala in amongst this lot. But we do have a situation developing at cul-de-sac crossing. Let's go across there, shall we? Are we there? No, we are not, Louise. There we are. Now, there we have some zebra that look like they're coming down towards the water. Now, this is the stupidest place that an animal can cross, because it is deep, and that immediately means that, that immediately means that the crocodiles are at an advantage. Sorry about that scraping noise. It was my, or shall we say, slightly rough chest. So let's find out. I don't know what's going to happen there. Then, if we go to Main North, we can still see that there are a number of massing vehicles checking out what's happening around here, trying to see if there are perhaps some animals coming down. Maybe the vehicles have moved off. It does actually look like they've moved off. And it is quite possibly, I suspect, because they saw some animals coming over the hills towards the crossings, and then maybe they turned around and went elsewhere. And maybe they're heading down towards Dusty Crossing, which is further south down the river. There is still one vehicle there. Let's have a quick look at Main South if we can. There is Main South. And not much going on there. Okay, so that's the lay of the land at the moment. I'm really a little bit cheesed off that we haven't managed to bring you a crossing during our main Safari Live show, because it really has been quite a day of action around these crossing points, and I'm sure the crocodiles are equally irritated that things have not taken a slightly more dramatic turn by this stage. You can see there are crocs everywhere here. Well, what we might try and do now is go to the mountain cam, and I'll just give you a view of the universe from up here. Can we do that? Oh, there we go. Louise is on the ball now. So this is the mountain cam, which is mounted just outside the migration control room, which is the fancy name that I've given to the place that I spend most of my life these days. And let's just go down into the valley. We can see the zebra that are there, and apparently the lions were seen just around this corner earlier today, and that's the Agama pride, and I believe that they have not eaten this week. I've spoken to the guides from Agama Mara, which is the wonderful place where we live, and they have said that they don't think that these lions have hunted this week. I can't believe that they haven't had maybe a small snack in the night when no one's been looking. But certainly it doesn't seem that they've been hunting too much, which is quite interesting and certainly bodes well for our TV shows, which are coming to you live on Friday night, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Nat Geo Wild. That's 11 p.m. 2300 hours in America. And Linda, you say this is beautiful. It is wonderful, isn't it? Well, there's some buffalo. Now, I think the buffalo here, if I was a buffalo in the Sabi Sand, I'd be cheesed off that I'd been born there, simply because there, of course, we know the lions, like the inimitable Nkuhuma Pride, they like to kill buffalo as a matter of course. But out here, there's quite a lot else that's much easier to kill around, and so if you're a buffalo, I suspect unless you're fairly gormless and fairly badly injured or sick, I think you'll find you'll be left alone almost entirely to your own devices. Now that gully there is the laga in which the lions normally keep their cubs. Let's just scroll along here. If we do see a cub at this distance, it will be the size of a small pixel. Normally there'd be a massing of vehicles, of course, but there doesn't seem to be anything there now. John, you say, how is the Mara not a natural wonder of the world? John, who knows? But you know, as with most awards that are given to anybody for anything, they're largely political, aren't they? So if you want something named a natural wonder of the world, you probably have to speak to the right people. And, well, I think the conservation authorities, certainly in the Mara Triangle, are far too concerned with looking after conservation than getting political points. It would actually help, I'm sure it would help the place from a tourism perspective hugely, were to be named a natural wonder of the world. That's a good question. I don't know. Certainly if Table Mountain in Cape Town is able to be a natural wonder of the world, I don't see why this shouldn't be. Table Mountain, a small hill that they have in Cape Town, which seems to attract more visitors to it than, the Masai Mara does. It always has wondered or astounded me. Somebody read me the statistic once, but apparently Paris gets about 30 million visitors every year, compared with the Kruger National Park's 3 million. Now that's very outdated statistics, so they may have changed slightly. But why you'd want to go to Paris to look at the steel Eiffel Tower when you could be looking at elephants just as well in the Kruger Park? Well, I don't know. Not to say that I don't like Paris, which I do. That's a discussion for another time. Let's head across to Tristan, who is now looking for additional heartbeats.
I am, and I saw a heartbeat, but it seems to be hiding from us. There was a woodpecker that was sitting there. There it is in the back, Seb. Actually, I can see it now. Do you see it right in the back of the tree? So if you go back to that same branch, I'll try and guide you in, and then just go down a little bit to your right. Where is it gone now? It was there. There it is. You can just see it at the back there. There it is. There we go. So it looks like a bearded woodpecker, just given the size. It's gone up to the right of the tree now, Seb, but it's going to be very difficult to see. It's hopping around in those bushes, but I'll try and find it in my book, because that's going to be much easier to see than in the tree, and I'll wait for it to see if it comes out of the tree and see if we can't get a better view of it. But here we go, Seb. Rather look here. So this is the bird we're talking about. It is called a bearded woodpecker, which is the largest woodpecker that we see in this area. Now, it didn't have that red crest, which would tend to suggest then that it is the female. So you see the female's just got the black sort of moustachial stripe and eye stripe, and then the black hood, whereas the male has that little bit of red on top, and this bird doesn't have that red. From what I could see, it was just the black. And interestingly enough, you can actually tell these guys apart from the others. We were talking earlier about the drumming sound, and Taylor was mentioning it as well, and it's basically because this bird is so much larger than the other woodpeckers we see in this area. When these guys peck at wood, it becomes a very loud, hard drum, and it sounds as though something big is hitting the wood. So they've got a very, very, very hard drumming sound, whereas the others tend to be a little softer and more of a tap than a hard drumming, so you can tell the difference between the two of them. And they're such amazing birds. I do love woodpeckers, and I was hoping that it would start to try and forage and peck away, because from where we are now, the distance that we're at, it would have been very nice, because we would have been able to actually hear that pecking very clearly. But alas, it seems as though our woodpecker flew away, and so unfortunately for us, we're going to have to carry on and see if we can't find another one. They're actually quite nice in the winter months, because woodpeckers, with all the foliage missing, you often can see them a lot better than you do in the summer months. In summer you do see them on these dead trees looking for little wood boring insects, but in this winter it's much easier, because even in the marula trees or the knob thorns or varying other trees that they spend a lot of time in, you'll actually still be able to see them. So it's a good time of the year for the woodpeckers. Now, for those of you who are wondering how many species of woodpecker we get in this area, well, we get 4 that you can see here at Djuma. So you get the bearded, like I just pointed out. Then we get the smallest one, which is the cardinal. And then we get a golden-tailed and a Bennett's woodpecker. Sorry, I just saw this little squirrel that's just climbed up. So we had a squirrel to start off with. There it is, jumping around to the right. There it is. Oh, it just jumped into the grass and off it scurries away. So our little squirrel, there comes another one actually, and there that one goes too. And a waterbuck actually. He's busy staring at us. I didn't even notice the waterbuck. I was so caught up with the squirrel. So it just goes to show you sometimes that even big animals can hide in plain sight. Now I wonder how many times this happens where we just drive past one of these larger antelope species because we're focusing on something else. But this is a beautiful waterbuck male. I do like waterbuck and their horns. Their horns are fantastic. They have these big sort of forward facing horns with those ridges on them, and this is still a young waterbuck. This waterbuck is going to get a little bit bigger, and its horn structure definitely will get larger as it gets older. You can also see the ears are not too tatty just yet. The older they get, the more tatty those ears will become as they run through these brush and thickets and end up tearing at those ears. So it does happen from time to time that they get a tear, and it's got one little tear just in the mid-ear section from his life already. But you can see, look at how coarse their fur is in comparison to a lot of the other animals we see. Long, coarse hair that is covered in that oil that is secreted from their sebaceous glands, and that gives them not only a pungent smell, but the ability to utilize water like no other antelope that we see here at Djuma. These guys are able to go into watery areas like these dams, treehouse, twin dams, or even riverbed systems or river systems, and be able to get right into the water, and that oil that is secreted is just like a waterproofing coat, and it repels the water away, and that's why they have much longer fur, because if they had very short fur, it wouldn't be able to repel water as well. The longer the fur, the more oil, the better water resistance they have, and that allows them to go into water not to get too cold, one, and two, also to stay nice and dry, that they don't get skin irritations and all kinds of other things that they would get if they were submerged in water for long periods of time. A very clever system that they've got. Also, great camouflage when you've got a grey coloured long coat like that. We're going to leave our waterbuck, which I'm sure is going to slowly make its way towards Treehouse Dam. I think that's where they're going to end up heading. Oh, it's going to snow. It sounds like Taylor has kicked gremlins. She's beaten them. She's won the match, and she's back out and about, which is fantastic news.
Well, I didn't actually do anything. It was all Batman, because of course, as you know, Batman has got some serious martial arts training. I don't know if it's martial arts, but it sure looks like it. Anyways, we just replaced a cable. Not sure what actually happened. Let's see and keep our fingers crossed that it actually works. So I was quite sad as we were driving around hoping that our picture was going to come up. We picked up on some buffalo tracks, but it was Craig that said, oh, by the way, when I went for a run today, I saw some buffalo. He actually told Tristan he saw a herd of zebra though. He got the animals mixed up. And so I said, okay, cool, where? And he said, no, around Sydney's Dam. So we went and checked, and we found their tracks that crossed down the same route as which those two male lions walked this morning. They then cut to Impala Plains and crossed. So sad, our first buffalo herd. But what we will do a little bit later, we'll actually just do a big loop. We'll go down that way and see if we can't have a look at their tracks and dung, because I'm sure buffalo dung tracks, and I got quite excited about them. Not as excited as I did when I saw the ostrich tracks, but excited. So I thought we'd quickly come towards Woodpecker Dam and just have a quick squiz and see what bird life is upon us. Oh, by the way, I know Tristan went to Treehouse Dam, but if you got to see the lapwing chicks, I found another one. We went there and we didn't have any signal. There's now 3 blacksmith lapwing chicks, so I don't think I was counting very well this morning. I think they all might have just been around the corner. Now I can't see because the sun is in my eyes, so I'm just going to scrunch them up and hope we find some birds. Oh, there are some birds in here. Sorry, Craig, I couldn't even see. There's a hardy-dar just down in the water. Oh, there was one even closer than that, Craig. That was funny. I thought you, Craig, was going to go into the one that was just below us, but they're both doing exactly the same thing. And I still find this particularly interesting, seeing hardy-dars wading in the water like an African sacred ibis does, which you were looking at with James this morning from the river cams. And we were discussing it about, what, a couple of weeks ago, and I'd said that I'd never seen it before. And I know you see it on the live dam cam at Pete's Pond. And then, of course, we see it here at Woodpecker Dam. And Craig and I had a long discussion about this, and we were both saying how we've never ever seen it before until, well, since we've been working here. So I still find it particularly interesting because you go into the cities, and I've never seen them in any of the wetland areas. Always on the open areas. They love golf courses just as much as Egyptian geese love golf courses. You'll find lots of African hardy-dar ibises around there, but typically not probing in the water. But I think it's great. They've now realized that they can, of course, do this, and they're obviously getting lots of things to eat out of it. So why stop? Why not just continue? And there's no African sacred ibis here that are doing the same thing, so it's not like they're competing all of a sudden for the same food source. There's a gap within the birds. Who else have we got here? We've got one of the blacksmith lapwings, either Mr. or Mrs., just running across, just on the other edge over there. There we go. If you zoom straight in the center, you should pick it up. There it is. Oh, didn't look like it took a step into some really deep water there. Very busy. There must be lots and lots of insects on the surface of the water. It's difficult to see though because the wind has picked up slightly now. Normally when it's not a breath of wind at all, you'll see the little ripples that the insects are causing. So same thing, they're also, a lot of these insects will live on top of the surface of the water. So you know, we always see the water striders. There'll be other small little insects doing the same thing. But some of them get too close to the water's edge when they come down to get moisture, and then unfortunately end up drowning. And well, then it's an easy pickings for the blacksmith lapwing. Oh, you're going to have a little bath for us now. I think that it didn't actually look like it was eating. It's now drinking. A little shake. Did you see that? Lifted its leg, shook the excess water off before it sort of rubbed its feet through its feathers. How great is this? Watching this bird bath like that. Look at the little dance that it's doing. I don't know, I feel like there could be a shake your booty song here. Maybe I'll start thinking of one, and over the next few days I'll try and put it together about how the blacksmith lapwings have a bath. Now these birds are also quite noisy. Yesterday we were talking about the noisiest bird in the bush, and I think James said the hardy-dar ibis, I said the trumpeter hornbills, and Scott said the, what did Scott say? The woodland kingfisher. Now they're both equally noisy. However, I think definitely a contender for that game could have been the blacksmith lapwing. Now normally they only make quite a lot of noise around their breeding time, but I disagree with that completely because I've never heard a quiet blacksmith lapwing. They make a noise for everything, just like the crowned lapwings do. Any bird comes too close, both male and female are quite territorial. They swoop in, they make a lot of noise, they chase them away. See, just as it's doing now, it's actually it was wanting to chase the doves away. That's rude. I'm trying to talk. Ibises. Don't mind them. So there's the doves. Look at it. See? Oh, did it have it by the feather? It did too. Did you see that? That was very aggressive. That blacksmith lapwing, there it goes again. Oh my goodness. It actually had that turtle dove by one of the feathers on its wings. It pulled it out. I don't know if you managed to see that. Perhaps you can try and take a screenshot and have a closer look, sort of do a freeze frame. That was really impressive. That's probably one of the most aggressive encounters I've seen, it doesn't seem like much, but I've never seen them actually remove a feather from another bird before. So that just shows you. Now, it's one thing the way that they sort of show their territorial disputes towards other birds, but you wait and see when you see two of these birds fighting. Now, they've got these little carpal spurs actually just on their breast. You won't be able to see them though, they're so small. The males are longer, the females also have them again because they're both defending territories. And it's important for the boys. So when they do fight, you'll see them just like the ostrich sort of fight, pushing their breasts up against one another. And that can be quite sharp and quite dangerous. Now, Michael, you were wondering if there are any Egyptian geese. There was actually one, but I don't know. There they are. Down there, there's Mr. and Mrs. Egyptian geese on the other side of the dam. Just a little bit to the left. Oh, there we go, we've got one. And they're not making too much noise today. They're actually fairly quiet. There we go. I think the turtle doves feel quite safe. But Michael, wherever you go, I think in the whole of South Africa, wherever there's water or an open grassland and a dam or something nearby, the Egyptian geese will flock there. They'll hang around. But they're not too bothered at the moment. This one is now not preening itself anymore. Perhaps it's looking for nice green grass shoots, which there seem to be a few popping up on all that clay now. Now, clay soil is really great too because it retains minerals. So you typically find that you will get lots of grass and things growing up on areas like that. Whereas, for instance, Quarantine, that big open plain, is quite sandy soil. And that's sort of all the nutrients get leached out of the sandy soil. They don't hold them as well. So it's just munching. But I think we might focus on the birds this afternoon, and well, if we stumble into any of the bigger game, that will just be a bonus. I'm going to send you back across to Tristan now before his bird flies away. It seems as though he's joined in on the birding afternoon.
Well, we are, Taylor, because we've come down to Twin Dams and it's fairly quiet mammal-wise, but we have a very cool bird that we don't see that often. We have been seeing it quite regularly in this exact same spot, so it's our same male greater painted snipe. So for those of you that are keeping birdless, I know some of you must have it because this is, I think, the third or fourth time that I've seen it now on drives, but it hangs around at this particular little water source, and look at its camouflage. So you can see now it's standing right out in the open, but most of the time it will be in amongst that marshy area, and they really do blend in very well. So it is a nice bird to see. And funny enough, in this bird, most of our birds out here, the males are actually more brightly colored than the females, but here in this case the male is far more drab than what the female is. He's got that white that goes over his head, like a little white highlight on from his beak to his back, and then he's got those white eye stripes and a little collar around him. But the female is very pretty. She's got a rusty sort of chestnut brown head and throat patch, and she looks very cool. So this is the male that we're busy looking at on top, and you can see he's got that white that I was talking about and that creamish white color going over the top of his head, white eye stripe, and then the white shoulders. Whereas the female on top, she's got that rusty red color, or like I say, chestnut neck and shoulders area, and I think she looks prettier than he does. But they've also got these sort of gold flecks when the sun hits them. They are very pretty birds, and they are an uncommon resident or a local nomad, which means that they move around a little bit within the system. And this guy we first started to see, actually, funny enough, in about, I think it was May, maybe April, was when I first spotted him in this area. So he's been fairly resident since then, and a really nice bird to see. Now, just now we had a situation where there was squirrels alarm calling. There were some impalas here, and all of a sudden the impalas went bolting off. The squirrel was making a noise, and I thought I heard a bushbuck or nyala bark just to my north here. So I want to quickly just go have a look and see. You never know what could be lurking, although there's an impala there again. But maybe let's just check. I'm going to go quickly have a little look and see what I can find here, because it seems as though there was something that disturbed everybody. And while I do that, let's go across to James, who, well, might be quite envious of the size of the animal that he's looking at.
I'm quite envious of the snipe, I must confess. I think that's very exciting indeed. We are looking, of course, at a giraffe, not a snipe. A giraffe that is sitting, looking lazily at the river, thinking about, well, probably either better days or how magnificent this particular day is, and wondering what his first tipple for the evening will be. That, of course, is the Maasai giraffe. Let us zoom out from the Maasai giraffe slowly. Very little else has happened at the crossings, I'm afraid. I think they've all calmed down for the day, which is a little bit sad, given that you've only just joined us. And I'm afraid I've failed to find you a bird to look at. So that's not very good at all. Let's go to Main North, have a look what's going on there. Oh, there's a car. We could, I suppose, people watch, but that would be a bit wooed, wouldn't it? Let's have a look at this fellow. I did see one or two crocodiles heading up the river. I think a lot of them can smell what's been going on at Cul-de-sac crossing, which is a little bit higher up than this. And their smelling of what's going on at Cul-de-sac crossing is leading them to head up the river very slowly. You can see that there's no urgency in this particular one. He's not in the slightest bit urgent. Oh dear, the thing's taken on a mind of its own again. Sorry about that. It's now zooming out entirely of its own accord. There we are. Now it's zooming in of its own accord. Now it's going left of its own accord. There we are. We have a static shot. Fantastic. Now this, I think, is a much smaller crocodile than the one we saw earlier. Let's just zoom in on his teeth and see if he too has been eating today. Sorry about this. Let me just get in there quite close. This one's a lot more difficult. Now we can see very nicely there, in fact. Hang on, look at that. We can see very nicely the toothy grin that we were talking about earlier, and the notches that we were asked about, and I forget, sorry, who asked us that question, but there you can see very clearly the notches into which the teeth fit on either side. That was Bobby, you asked us the questions. So there you can see you were absolutely correct in assuming that those notches are for the teeth that close up and down. Look at the terrifying tooth up front there. I think that's amazing. Our one here, our crocodile skull here, doesn't have a tooth anything like that size in the front of his face. So he's obviously a very successful crocodile, this one. Well, he wouldn't have got to this age if he wasn't, would he? They're what we call K selectors, if you like. No, sorry, R selectors, which means they make hundreds and hundreds of babies for every one of them that make it to adulthood. Izzy, you're wondering if the bumps are hard or fleshy. I've never actually sat on a crocodile, but I think they're pretty hard. I've got Stefan Winterboer sitting next to me here. Stefan, are they hard or fleshy?
They're horny, like a snake's scale.
Horny like a snake's scale.
Or lizard, but they move.
But they do move. They are mobile.
Flexible.
So they're flexible. Steph knows that, of course, from his days as a professional crocodile wrestler. Which he was engaged in, of course, before becoming a builder, which he is now.
I played with someone's crocodile belt once.
Ah, I see. He says he played with someone's crocodile belt once. Well, there we go. That's a better way of checking out how hard they are than trying to sit on a crocodile like this, which would almost certainly take offense and bite you. And let's face it, if you were bitten by those teeth, well, it's unlikely you'd ever be bitten by anything again. Okay, right, we have some action at Main South. Now, when I say action, I do mean it in as loose as possible way. Let's go across to Main South. Three zebra coming down. There they are. Family to be crossing. They've got a tiny little one with them. One of them's pregnant. Guys, turn around. I mean, I hate to say this while we're live, but I really think you should turn around and go the other way. There's plenty to eat for you guys that side. nothing but bad can come of the decision to get into the water this afternoon. We need a bigger herd, more safety. Let's watch this fellow come across. Oh, and there's a gazelle behind him, I think, just trotting through the grass there. He's thinking about it. And as Louise says, it would have been great if those were lions. Well, Louise, yes, it would have been great for us. Possibly not for the zebra, though. I think we can probably see them from both cameras. I'm just going to, while we wait for that one to decide what to do. Well, shall we say, indecisive way towards crossings. Yeah, you can just see them. They're not far from the crossing. Oh dear, something's spooked there. As you can see, trot up and away from the river. Definitely the wisest possible motion. Now, what's interesting, of course, is we did see those massing vehicles in this area, and I think that this is quite astounding because, not astounding, I think that it's quite interesting because there may be lions where those vehicles were earlier. Anyway, here they go again, and I wonder if the zebra didn't pick up a lion, perhaps. He's now doing an extended canter. Where is he going? He's heading south towards a road and then a crossing. How this plays out, while we do that, Tristan, I believe, has got some spiraled horned antelope.
Well, we do, except this is the female, which means that she does not have horns. If it was the male, it would probably be the most exquisite sets of horns in Africa, as far as I'm concerned. Them and the sable have the two most amazing sets of horns that we get out here, and this particular individual, being female, unfortunately lacks those. But she is still very pretty and doing exactly what kudu do normally, is that as soon as you find them out in a little bit of an open patch like this, and I was actually quite surprised that she spent time in the road and let us look at her, they generally then go behind a bush and try and camouflage, because as they go in, they'll have this white striped body and grey coloration, and that will just help them to really blend in very well in the vegetation. And so you'll find they cross quickly behind that, and then they sit behind there once they're done. Now I'm going to try roll forward to see if we can't see them a little bit better. Unfortunately, with the slope that we're on, rolling was not going to happen. Now, it sounds as though James, who was waiting patiently for things to happen, has had something happen. So let's quickly go across to him.
Yeah, everyone, I was correct. The zebra did spot a lion, and there it is. You can just see it slinking down the bank there. I wonder what it's going for. It might actually be eating something now. That is what the zebra saw, and that's why it went trotting off, and that's why all those vehicles were there. There's more than one lion there. I think they're on a kill of some sort. You see them there in the grass. Yeah. They're eating. Or they're playing, but I think they're eating. Look at the zebra coming to have a look. They've definitely got a better look than we do. They're going to be anywhere near the slot. I'm just going to, while we watch this picture, have a look at Main North Crossing to see if we can't get a better look. Although I don't think we're going to get a better look. No, we're not. I'm afraid, Luisi, we're not. Where are we now? Main South. Wow, so those lions have been there the whole time, you know. It's not entirely surprising that not much has come down. No, This thing really is getting a mind of its own. This is most likely the paradise pride. They are the ones that ply their trade in the long grass on the riverbanks, waiting for exhausted creatures to either make their way into or out of the water. And they're right in there. You will just see every so often the flick of a tail or the movement of some ears. And that's where the paradise pride is lurking as we speak. Dastardly, dastardly creatures. Anyway, let's go back to Main North and I'll show you vaguely where they are.